Mercy. Oh. Y'all know, if you know this channel, you know I hate to do this. I like to just read the poem, not be like talking about the poem, the same videos when I'm reading the damn thing, because it should stand on its own. But this is the title poem of the new book, Mercy, that is out today, and I wasn't sure if I was going to read it. Love it when people say that. It's like, well, you're reading it, so what do you never, but I wasn't sure if I would, and I'm gonna. But it's, I started writing it about halfway somewhere through reading Mercy Dworkin's book, and so some of the references in here are from that. I wrote it from May 2nd through July 26th this year. Off. The specifics are shifted. She found brutality and loss as an adventure. A child kept inside, a child outside, a woman outside, a woman kept inside, who hated her mother, who named her, betrayed her. I came to mind as a motherless child, a hearth hugger, eating shit to stay alive when she was there but gone, before memory, only learning later how she was not there but supposed to be, how I screamed whenever someone entered the room, learned to hide food at grandma's house before my second birthday, how blood poured from my baby brother's mouth down both sides of his face when finally fed, for he who lives more lives than one, more deaths than one must die, he and I, opposite as day and night, as wild. The feelings are the same, the incredulity, the impatience of having faith in us, humanity, the self-trust, self-knowledge, self-reliance, not the illusion of being an island, but the quiet, the knowing, the slow learning that your words do not translate. No one's listening anyway. That anything which might get through may well be shrunken and distorted to fit into the nothing someone had already decided you were, the numbing that comes and goes because you are alive. Alive, and you have to try to make yourself heard, to be understood. For a time she loved Whitman in a way I never have. I loved a handful of lines. Lawless snowflakes, simple as grass. But on the shoulders of this giant, vainglorious blowhard I stand, still reaching. I liked E. Cummings, a blue true dream of sky. And anyway, what little of Walt I'd liked beforehand was poisoned by some cad who thought all American girls were Francophiles, easily odd, stupid, endlessly polite, who had no respect for me. Not my body, not my mind, not a lover, but some waif poacher who assumed I'd treasure his rags because he said he touched them in France, as if I'd never heard this contemptuous song before. Who used other people's groomed bodies to fuck himself, the kind you don't bother to notify when you leave, you just go. A drop in the sea of fools who have reason to know that you're seen through, who steal joy and give none, experimenting to see with what they can get away, who think humiliation doesn't matter when it's done to force sex designates, who behave as if girls in this country live pampered, pretty lives even as they try their damnedest to make them into hellscapes, as if they're the arbiters of reality and really slumming. Thick, tiresome, touristic, intraspecies predators, the kind who could convince me I am. Maybe he shouldn't be. The thoughts are the same, slow to give up on peace, on love, on people, these holy stardust condensates, unable to give up on freedom, the quiet of knowing how we are born. The specifics are different. Demand not clamoring for my heartfelt opines, I sold my precious only time. Although nothing a pedestrian can do will convince the circling traffic, I never sold my ass or mouth or cunt for anything. Not for money, not food, not shelter, not ever. Priceless. I gave them freely, or believed I did, when fed and sheltered. Or they were stolen. The confusion's the same. If education had been the key to prevention, then I must not have understood the definition. So how could it be? I went with him. I did that. I went back. So it couldn't have been, because he took me back, because I knew him, because I was with him. So how could I complain? Or maybe I did understand, but it made no difference, because if knowledge were power, then Archimedes would have died of natural causes. Michelangelo would have been free to leave, to paint or sculpt as he pleased. Tesla wouldn't have died crazy and poor, obscured by some greedy, stupid, red-nosed buffoon who could give him privileges and then just take them all away, but who, for all his days, would never be able to understand what Nikola knew. Shakespeare's sister would have soared like a thunderbird, like Bah, Bah, black sheep, risen like a phoenix, burned and shone like the sun, beat like a pulse in the ear, sung like Sappho, paler than grass, intimate with dying, lamented like Enheduanna, tears flowing like sweet intoxicants, transcended speech like oh no no, leopard flower, berry black like when I think about you. I reverse my robe, wear it inside out. When I think of you, I feel I turn inside out. Inky as dark morning, if knowledge were power. Her life would have been different. And all the things I knew would have protected me from the ones with socioeconomic status and the will to force people to convince them that they are not the doom, so utterly repulsive. The stature to make people pretend to be happy, or else, when there was no one else to whom they can go. Maybe she would have understood the slivers of honesty one can live inside, like refusing to fake an orgasm ever, like never not having a knife. I understood violence, the chasm, what it means to use another person's language, because that is all there is. All you have to work with, even if it's all mad, mindless, all lies, what it is to try, to fail, to lie on yourself, because there are no words for what you think, or how you feel, what was done or what you did, who you are, how you change, how you remain, only lines you try to arrange and rearrange into the truth, to peel and pale and pair until they make sense, at least to you. Spartan, I worked hard for my food and shelter, my bloody, sweaty pennies. Loved James Baldwin, thought he would understand. By 17, you had done everything you could do to me. By then, I couldn't even cry. The first time I passed out, a man was watching, eager, expectant, saw that I was in pain. Pain like she understood was too little and sweet and temporary a word. Leaning in, he said, "You can cry," like giving me permission. And I nodded, confused, still trying to be polite, like, I know that. But what use is it? But then I thought, well, maybe he knows something I don't. And so I tried it. Tried to let the tears come if they wanted to, if they were still there. But they weren't. Instead, I passed out. It was the first bliss I had ever known. Pure bliss. Not just relief, but understanding. Being understood, like the universe was a vast puzzle I could finally comprehend. A puzzle I had just solved. And then it was rent from me. I woke 15 with that stupid guy leering over me. James thought the worst things could be done and then over, but he didn't understand. He got older, famous, worthy, grew to be a man whose suffering meant something, like Du Bois, Douglas, Dumas, like Dostoevsky. Maybe he thought, as a rule, all women's lives are pampered and pretty, as if, as a condition of their births, they look a certain way, like, say, colonizers, not because of what they did with their time, or who they were in their deeds, but because of where they were born, who their parents are assumed to have been, not queens, but eternal princesses, disposable, dismissible, detestable Karens, Quilos, Crackers, Wasichus, Caspers, Gringas, Honkies, hungry ghosts, Slovos, rabid souls, not people, but Wetikos, pale devils who don't count, you know, so precious. When I could cry again, it didn't come from pain in my body, but pride. When I was a child, for the love of me, I tried to die. I wanted a better life than I could foresee, and I wanted to never return. As far back as I could recall, I took my birth to be a punishment. No soul would have agreed to this. Hearing the screams of my brother down the hall, leaving my body to spiral above him as he writhed and fought back like I never did when I knew I would lose. I thought that he was stupid, reflexive, but he knew something I didn't. I didn't stay dead. I felt somewhere when there would come a time I could be free, when I would get out and no one could keep me. In pursuit of this mirage, I came to know cold and wet differently than I had before, and I had known them intimately. Vast unendurables, neither beautiful nor temporary, dangers absolute, not because they killed me, but because they could have, and didn't, because I couldn't pass out, couldn't cry, and what would have been the use? The people who left me out there to drown, to the elements, to strangers, maybe they didn't know what that meant. Maybe they didn't understand cold and wet, didn't fear their maiming power like I did, didn't know what it was to flounder, to walk hard for food and shelter, how the darkness was safer, a friend, an absolution. Cloaked in dark hair where no one could see, darkness meant solitude. Safety as opposed to being spotlit in the sodium glow to the traffic, the sleepy giants, the hidden meanness. They couldn't know what it was to walk miles of hills to the soul-crushing shifts like they might do experimentally one afternoon, if they're in the mood. But to do it in the obsidian-sharp darkness, when the buses aren't running, to do it in the cold, to do it wet, to do it for a decade, to do it when you're sick, sore, injured, when you're so tired you vomit before you set foot out the door, so tired you wake up in sobs you have no time for, when it's raining, when it's dry, when you're thirsty, when the ice is an art of war, an eternal gripless enemy, a heart of darkness, when the wind is gritty, gusting, rust-grim drag of knives through your clothing, when the snow is a glittering white, waiting each step with erratic collapses, a searing chill that climbs your spine, sizzling, seeps into your heart and never dies, never dries inside your shoes. To keep going because you have to, because you can't be late, because you can't turn back, because you refuse to go back, because there's nowhere else to go. To do it while you're shitting yourself, to do it while you're being circled, blue, glossy green, velvet black. They could not have known what it meant to walk twice as far on the way back, after the long shifts, walking for hours because you can't stand to sit inside of the simmering bitumen, on the side of the simmering bitumen street, waiting for hours in the glaring lights, seething, 6 lanes of fumes choking you, choking on 6 lanes full of blinding flat, mica bright, brother and eyes circling because you can't bear to go back and be plaster trapped in the gypsum shelter you worked so hard for, with someone you love who has no respect for you. Because you will die if you don't have at least some hope for freedom, even when you want to lay down and die, because you know that you don't die when you give up and lay down. You just get cold and wet. I have to bless them with this mercy of misunderstanding. Because otherwise, it means that they were aware and didn't care. Or they thought my reflexes were funny. Thought that it was only right. That it was my place, a fate they had no way of knowing, no reason to know since I never spoke of it, not really, not outside the blocky, disinterested questions I had no words for anyway, no easy answers that would be understood. Sometimes I tried, but I didn't like pity, the dismissal, the faux astrological understanding, and anyway they just took and ran with the misleading facts as if I wasn't there, as if clarifying information would have been interfering with something worthy, assuming they could just imagine. Imagining their worse than mitigating, situating the unseen wherever they had already decided I belonged, into a story that was believable to them. But the truth never is. So what's the use of telling it? The worst things weren't done and over. The worst was getting up, over and over, to work hellish worlds alongside people who each time took you for a blank slate, believing you must have been pampered because you were still listening, because you were pretty enough that was all you could be, who spoke loud and long about their plights as signs of their strength and resilience, who were assured enough to decree that if you had ever suffered, it must have been because you were stupid and made damn fool choices, and if you ever tried to talk about it, it meant that you were a whiny little bitch, but if you refused to give the pricks the satisfaction, it made you a martyr and a vic. People who declined to acknowledge the numbers, the cold, hard geopolitical facts, who spoke over you that you wanted pity. Oh, God. Pity. For all that you never spoke of, what you could barely write, what you survived because you were cursed with strength and resilience, among other things. That's when I realized that solitude wasn't a decision I had made. That is when the tears overcame me. When they first came, love seeded them from me, one by one, until they grew into a raging river, a shrinking puddle, a dry bed, until I tried to die because I have standards, because I value my life, because I look at the goddamn moon. Life is so much more than suffering. But if it is not, it ought to be. But love didn't let me stay dead, wouldn't let me stay, so pouring I went back to work for dread women who should have known better than to try to hide things. Known better than to reveal mere givens with a slick graphite brittle stare down like a double dare, as if they'd invented soundless terror by cultivating the fine art of being shitty. As if they were proud and thought they could shame me. As if I couldn't know and wouldn't understand, as if it wasn't a shared legacy, as if it didn't abound like silicates, like beauty, like greatness, who maybe had good intentions, but not the honor to show me up, to show me how it is done, who maybe had courage, but who used their powers for cruelty, like cowards, who certainly offered help, but who as a rule had no more respect for girls than men do, who had no respect for me, not my time, not my money, not like admiration, which is selective, but like dignity, the indiscriminate basic decency afforded to all, which is the true measure of one's own damn self, people who had every reason in hell to know better, but couldn't countenance the nerves, the nausea, the flash flooding, or maybe they understood very well, and they just wished they didn't. Maybe they wanted to be a cool kid, not like the other girls. Maybe the water was the wrong color, wrong place. Would Baldwin have understood? Would Dworkin, how they treated it like ostentatious contagion? But how it couldn't have been racism, because I was the wrong color. I went back to work beside vicious women who tried to tell me who I was as if I didn't already know and know better, as if I couldn't see them with my own 5 eyes, as if I didn't understand them for the hallowed miracles they were, who deemed my past pumice hollow. Workless, worthless, safe, easy, secure, fun, free of hard time, hardship, poison, destitution, drudgery, because I was still devoutly benign, even angry, even to them, who spoke over me that whatever it was I wasn't talking about, it couldn't have been that bad, because I was still respectful back, stronger than they thought I should be, with eyes brighter than they wanted to see, and they had to try to punish them out of me, but it wasn't about them, what came from my lips. Pavement pounding on my ankles, my knees, my hips, traffic forbids, the soft blessing of tarmac, every chance it gets. But maybe it wasn't a misunderstanding so much as justifying the indefensible. Long dead, I believe Malvina sang life into me, into my heart. God bless the grass, bless the grass, bless the grass that grows through the crack. Maybe Andrea would have understood my confusion when I healed enough to cry, and they called it broken. When I sought but fair treatment, and they called it special. When I grew strong enough to speak, and they called it weakness. When I gave up on everyone else, and they decried it as calling for their help. Maybe she would have understood my contention with being called a victim or a survivor by them, because I was neither ashamed nor as dead as they thought I should be. Well aware, still, waves of love sprung, gushing from my heart. I was alive, still alive and proud. Not a zombie, not rabid like they were, like their words, their lies. Still alive and real, spirited, effervescent, material, still bristling at mistreatment, injustice, mishandling. I will never get used to it, never accept it, never willingly perpetuate it. Alive, I matter to me, at the very least. In the silence, in the din, I know what I'm made of, no matter what is withheld, no matter what is spoken over me. Soft as gold, diamond, hard, ordinary, common, abundant, multitudinous. Maybe she would have understood my contempt for having those names shamed instead of rapist, exploiter, abuser, bully, manipulator, liar, abaser, confuser. Maybe she would have understood the starts, the shakes, the shifting, or maybe she would have called me simpering, smiley, slouchy, sentimental. Maybe she would have understood the chemical burn of insurmountable reflexes, how it stung to be told to love myself by people who didn't know the first thing, to be then talked at about my great concern for their uninformed opinions as they strove to make my life more arduous than it had already been, not in my feelings, but in this cold, hard, shared material reality. How agonizingly slow I earned my words, me, the icing. And I will tell you something. I love and honor my life well enough to know what fucking happened. Maybe she would have heard me singing revolutions into the thin morning mist, felt me exuding freedom from across the rolling plains. Freedom now, how I always did. Recognize that I was peace then, even in the deepest dale, and that I will be again. Maybe she would have understood what it cost me to learn to fight back, when I knew I would lose, to dare ask, or else what? Teach myself to show them up, to be done. Maybe I was incomprehensible, jumbled, unintelligible, opaque, confused, transparent, problematic, a situation magnet. But then maybe I wasn't. Mercifully, plenty of people had blessed me with reminders, rides, resources, people who didn't know how good they had it, people who had had it worse for far longer, people who just had it different, who understood without explanation, without any competition, who encouraged me to keep on, who believed in me for who I was, not the ambient happenings, people whom I believed in for the content of their character, or the circumstances of their birth, people who helped me when I needed help, who took me in, who listened, who risked, shared mirth, who graced me, no matter their dearth, who showed me how it is done. Oases, turquoise divine, beloved as lapis, who are why I know how good I have it, who use their wits for kindness, not gain, not self-image, not reputation, but because it was the right thing, because they wanted to, because they were humane, and we loved each other. Souls who rained down electrum feathers, speeding through heaven and the stars, who shared their languages, what truths they knew, who gave freely in the spirit, who tried. Maybe we could have been lovers. This giant, on her shoulders, I offer incense, knives, flowers of words that burst forth from me, from my heart. My wild heart, my radiant heart, my burning heart, my reverent heart, my hidden heart, my rebel heart, my open heart, my broken heart, my bleeding heart, red, red heart, hot blue in the black light, born true to a half moon, beating bright against the darkness, free as any bird. Thou, I honor her, heart, synonymous with bravery, man, humanity, humankind, the handwriting, the written word, the words that sing in my blood, our kin, our kind. I will never give up on us. I believe she would have understood the language of the veil, the deluge, the clean sea, the shining glory of thought, of feeling, the beauty of dumb luck, the sublimity of embodiment, what it means to be underestimated, stuck, the triumph of rising from magma-heavy, mountain-thick depths that an ocean of mongerers don't have the good sense to beware of, to admit to, of scaling summits to which there are no shortcuts, no reaching without the suck, the grind, half dark, half light, the being fucked over and over, no comprehension of the bliss without tribulation, without the contrast, the cavern, brother, the crevasse, mirror, steep, foothill faces which permit no cheat, no ascending on the backs of others. People, real people, stardust people, just like you are, whose lives are worth what your life is worth, not one, a tabula rasa, latently awaiting your judgment, the great naming, rare as Alexandrite, neodymium persistent, she would have understood, will, integrity, courage, hunger, concrete, ink, sincerity. She would have understood the desire to spare everyone this peak, anyone, even an enemy. She would have understood poverty and grief, not as punitive self-impositions, but trades you cannot make, commitments you have to keep, because you demand of yourself what you were born to be. Nothing less. She would have understood alone. Alone, alone, all alone. Alone on a wide, wide sea, not the absence of company, but pain past all words, torture, agony, devastation, anguish, torment, galvanizing, stainless, molten, steely, infinitesimal words. Alone like memory, family, morbidity, alone like cruel, stupid body laughter, hate, blood, ash, war, death, alone like still and quiet, placation, forgetting, like time never ending, heartbeat time, moon time, waiting for the day to end, for dawn to come, for it to be over, to stop, for freedom, listening, like opening book after book after book, and in all the leaves not seeing anyone like you, like anyone you really knew, only caricatures. Yup. Never reading the truth, hardly hearing your own voice land, and so seldom having someone make sense to you. She would have understood what it meant to be afraid. Irrationally afraid, unbearably afraid, quite reasonably afraid, to face them all down, to grow fearless, free, and then to be made afraid again, to do it all again and again, to love like fusion, completely, absolutely, unreasonably, to be betrayed, severed, bifurcated, and to love again, again and again and again, to speak the pure silver truth like new words, forbidden words, words that pay it forward, words of warning, like mercy, to be spoken over, silenced, maliciously misunderstood, diminished, defamed, derided, disbelieved, and then to speak them anyway.